Hey, welcome back, everyone. So our next speaker is Jack from Pandora. He's the Vice President of Advertising for Product Management at Pandora. He gave me a couple fun facts that I'm just going to use to introduce him. One, his favorite Pandora stations are Weezer, Toyota Sessions, Passion Pit, and Backstreet Boys Radio. So I think we should just give him a round of applause for that. If any of you have played Grand Theft Auto 4, you might recognize his voice as the track from the character Killer, which Jack actually has a credited voiceover for, which is also pretty awesome. So we're going to bring Jack up here on stage. I just wanted to also reiterate, we're going to have some time for Q&A at the end. So please use the mobile app to ask some questions, and we'll do a little Q&A with Jack at the end. But let's do a round of applause for Jack and bring him up here.
Cool. Thank you very much. Fun story about that Backstreet Boys thing. I've been at Pandora for 3 years now, and I took a trip to Australia to meet with our customers there for the first time. And I've had the same bio since I joined Pandora. And I was in an interview with one of the journalists there, like on TV in Australia, and they're like, "So, Backstreet Boys, you really like them, huh?" I actually had no idea that my bio for 2.5 years said that I liked the Backstreet Boys. And I learned on Australian national TV that was my bio. And that's one of the many fun stories that I've learned in my time at Pandora. So as I mentioned, I've been at Pandora for about 3 years. And in that time, we've been able to grow our advertising base from about $300 million to, by the end of this year, we'll be making over $900 million. The product team I inherited was about 2 product managers. We had about 12 engineers. In that span of 3 years, we've now grown that team to, we have 12 advertising product managers, about 65 developers that are focused on it. And as I mentioned, we're $900 million in advertising revenue. And it's been kind of a terrifying speed run to get to that point. And there have been some fun stories that have emerged over time, and it's really been the first opportunity in my career to not only scale a product team, but scale a product organization. And there's a lot of things that you have to think about as you go through that experience. So just to get a vibe on the room here, raise your hand if you are a product manager. All right, we've got a few product managers. How many of you work with a product manager in an engineering capacity, design capacity? All right, great. How many of you know what a product manager actually does? Yeah, that's way more hands than I thought I would get for that. Turns out it's different everywhere, but more than anything, when we talk about product management, it's the focus on the people that get stuff done, that are on the hook for getting stuff done. We all obviously play a part in that. And so I want to share with you guys what it means to scale a product management team, some stories along the way that we've learned, and how you can think about it. And first and foremost, when it comes to product management, when it comes to being effective as a product manager, as a product leader, there's one thing you have to remember: ship product. But it wouldn't be a presentation at a summit if SHIP wasn't also an acronym for a framework for things that we're going to talk about for scaling product management teams. So bear with me here. I tried really hard not to make it contrived. So what does it mean to ship product and scale teams? Thinking about sequencing, thinking about hiring, influencing your teams, not micromanaging, and praise. And I'll share a couple of stories of what that's meant and how we've kind of thought about it. And the first one I want to talk about is sequencing. And sequencing goes into every product roadmap discussion. You have to make trade-offs. What goes after, what goes before, what goes after, how do I make that sort of a product decision? What I mean by sequencing here is sequencing your career. If you are going to scale, if you are going to build a product team for your organization, you should think about really what it means to be a product manager, what it means to be a product leader. So you may ask yourself, what is it that a product manager, what is it you say you do here? And so in order to be good at becoming a leader, one thing has to be universally true. One thing that you have to think about before even raising your hand to your founder, to your manager, to say, I want to be a product leader, you damn well better be a good product manager first. Nobody can be an effective product management leader unless they've had some stories to share about being a good product manager. And so you may ask yourself, what is it that a product manager does? And what we think about at Pandora, we actually have a framework that we use of what are the qualities and characteristics of what makes a good product manager. And there are 5 core areas that we think about when it comes to being a good product manager. First of all, you've got to be really hell-bent on generating insights. Insights can mean, how do customers use my product? Insights can mean, what's the competitive landscape? It can mean, I learned this thing from a usability study. Becoming so obsessed with the problem that your product is trying to solve and being able to actually capture insights from that. And good product managers are really the leaders of that. It's everybody's job to generate insights, but a product manager can't do his job without understanding what it means for a user that is an 18-year-old female in Des Moines, Iowa. What does your product do versus what does your product do for a 34-year-old male in Utah? Turns out they have different applications in different cases. And how do you package those insights, package those unique morsels of things that we learned about our customer base and translate them into some form of innovation? And innovation is one of my least favorite words in all of product management, because people think it's like, I'm going to make the world a better place. I'm going to change it. I'm going to make it I'm going to do something that nobody's ever seen before. That stuff's cool. It's also high risk, high reward. And innovation can come in many forms. Innovation means continuing to drive the product forward based upon insights. And it's not just driven by the product manager. Most product managers actually don't come up with the ideas themselves. If you have a start product manager that's coming up with all the ideas and is just executing on them, there's a pretty good chance that everybody hates their guts. Because your job as a product manager is so much less to talk than it is to listen. Part of the way that you generate insights isn't just from the market, isn't just from your users. It's from the people that you collaborate with on a regular basis. It's from your engineering team. It's from your marketing team. It's from your business development teams. Being able to communicate and collaborate with them. Understand the pain. Your job as a product manager is to represent whoever's not in the room, be it a user, be it your business development team, your engineers, et cetera. Being able to communicate with them, collaborate with them to drive that innovation. And then make some really hard decisions. How many people in here have had every product go through that they've launched with unanimous agreement that that was the right decision to make? Right? You're going to piss somebody off every time you launch something. How can you be effective at telling people why you made the decision? How do you follow up with the people that disagreed with that decision and let them know why you made it? Communicate, collaborate, make tough decisions. And then ultimately, execution excellence, or as we like to call it at Pandora, getting shit done, right? How do you make sure you're getting shit done, you're shipping product? These are the traits and characteristics of a good product manager. And until you've mastered those things in your career, you're not going to be able to scale a product team. You've got to think about a good product manager is responsible for defining the what and the why. Not coming up with the what and the why, not inventing the what and the why, articulating what we're doing and why we're doing it, and making sure that organizationally you empower them to be on the hook for successes and failures. And the failures are really important. You can't scale a product team unless you've messed up a time or two. And so I would love to share a time that I messed up with you guys. It turned out it was really early, luckily, in my career to have a massive product blunder. I was at Google at the time, and we had this really great insight in 2007, which was people really want to comparison shop for mortgages. And right now, the way that the market landscape works, they're frustrated because they can only see what Bank of America offers. They can only see what Wells Fargo offers. They want to see it all in one place. So we invested 3 months of just developing this product where we were going to take mortgage rate feeds and put them all into one place. And when you search for mortgage rates, based on who you were, based on some filters that you identified, based on what we heard from the end consumer they wanted to have, they were going to have this nice clean sheet of mortgage rates. That was the insight that we were driving from. Everybody was super excited. And then it came time to start recruiting banks to start filtering in their mortgage rates. And then we learned an insight that we should have known all along, which is what's known as the competitive separation clause. Turns out Bank of America refuses to ever show their rates next to Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo refuses to show their rates next to Wachovia. And so we built this product, and when it came time to launch, we basically had local credit unions showing their mortgage rates. That sucked. That was not a successful product. But what we did learn was how well people respond to mortgage rates in advertising results. And we started to feed those into AdWords, and that started to churn up our product adoption. And so being able to have these how many people have had that launch where you're like, this is going to be that massive change for our business, and then you just fell flat on your face? Come on, we've all been there. Be brave. You need those things. We've all messed up, guys. Have those stories, sequence it. Have failures, have successes, have the stories that you're able to use to share with your teams when they inevitably make a mistake. Because as you're scaling a product team, you need to relinquish control. You need to think about, how can I make sure that decisions are happening that I am confident are the right ones, but I'm not necessarily involved in. And that's where hiring comes in, and hiring for depth. So one of the challenges that you experience in a growing business is sometimes you just have a problem that needs to get solved, and you want to hire ahead to just really fix it. And so you look for subject matter experts. In the world of product management, and especially scaling product management, subject matter experts are really challenging to scale over time, because they tend to solve the same problem over and over again, and they're not extremely deep in terms of the skill set that they're able to apply. And so I'll walk you through a story of a product that we actually recently launched that was driven entirely by one of the product managers we hired into our team. And driven through, this product manager was really strong on the insight side, interviewed a lot of advertisers, learned that advertisers want a way for people to opt into advertising, a way to guarantee that people are viewing videos. One of the things that we hear from listeners all the time is, I love the music on Pandora, but I hate the ads. I recognize that. I'm a product manager that works on advertising. I recognize people don't love advertising, but you've got to be smart about the way that you keep it free, because people also don't like paying for stuff. And so you got to walk that fine balance. So we have this product that we're super excited about. If you opt into watching a video for 15 seconds, if you watch that video, if you guarantee that you're going to watch this video, in this case for Land Rover, you will get 1 hour of commercial-free listening. Turns out that's something that listeners want and advertisers want. Guess who didn't want that? The 1,000 sales and operations people that are used to selling products a different way, that are used to selling audio products, that are used to thinking about a world where the more advertising you put into your product, the more money you're going to make. And what we said is, actually, we're going to cut our advertising by about 80%, and we're going to need you to actually make more money than you were before. They didn't love that. Turns out we've been able to overcome that. And how we overcame it was, we had a product manager that wasn't just good at building advertising products. He was really good at communication and collaboration. He had that skill set. And what he said was, the problem here isn't that people are scared of change. The problem is people don't understand the change that's happening. And so he created this template, which conveniently enough, we used Confluence to do it, and I'm pretty sure that's why I'm on stage talking to you guys. But what he said was, not enough people understand what it is that we're doing. And actually, more importantly, people don't understand what it isn't. Many people have this idea of, oh, we're killing audio ads. That's what we're doing. We actually had people that thought that's what our product strategy was. And in the what it isn't tab, we were able to call that out. And just as important as this what it is section, the why we're doing it. Why is it important that we do it? We know that every time we increase the amount of audio ads that people hear, they start listening less. And so what happens when they start getting fewer ads? Spoiler alert, once we've launched it, people listen 59% longer in that session when they use that ad. So the hypothesis worked out, and that's why I get to be on the stage and tell the story and not looking for a job. And the other thing that's important, so what are we doing? Why are we doing it? Again, maps pretty closely to the core competencies of a product manager. And then what does success look like? What are the metrics that we're looking to move? How are we going to evaluate whether or not this is successful? Because a good product manager has to iterate. And I will say, the thing that I'm most proud of in telling the story to you guys, I wasn't in the room for any of this. It was our product manager that had the depth to understand, I know where the pain points are. Here's what I recognize people are having a challenge with. And then as a product leader, my job was to make sure, OK, now that people understand it, let me do the blocking and tackling to make sure that the people that aren't on board, let me understand what's going on. Let me get them understanding why we're taking a challenging decision here and why we're scaling it. That's what depth means. Hiring for depth, scaling a product team means decisions are happening without you being in the room that you would agree with. That's important. That's how you scale a team. So you get the right people after you've built your career around building good products. The next one is what I like to call the don't be a micromanagey jerk. Because by being a good product manager, I will say this as a former individual contributor product manager, I thought all my ideas were great. And I think the way that products should be developed, I know the way a product should be developed. Turns out there are many ways to develop a product successfully. And your way isn't the only way to do it. And people get really demotivated when you tell them how to do their job. And so you have to think about influence. And I pull a lot of motivation from Captain James T. Kirk when I think about influence. It's really about a mission statement. One of the best things that the Starship Enterprise ever did was make the claim of our goal for the next 5 years is to explore new civilizations, to boldly go where no man has ever gone before. And what I love about that is if Lieutenant Riker comes up to Captain Picard, I'm now in the TNG years, I've accelerated, thank you. If Riker comes up to Picard and he's like, hey, you know what, we should go explore Earth's oceans. Very noble cause, but Picard can say, no, man has gone there before, we're not gonna go there. It's a principle that Picard has set up, that Captain Kirk has set up. What a mission does is create a series of parameters and rules that scales decisions in a way that you can make sure that your team is executing on these sorts of product ideas without going off the reservation. And what we did at Pandora was we made our own version of this for our ads team. We focused on what it means to have music play, what it means for advertisers to be in a situation where music plays. We came up with this idea that the goal of Pandora's advertising technology is to enable brands and products to resonate with listeners. What do I mean by resonate? To leave a lasting image, memory, or emotion. It's what music does. It's why when I hear Sitting on the Dock of the Bay by Otis Redding, it takes me back to my wedding night, first song that my wife and I danced to. When I hear Usher's Yeah, it takes me back to spring break in 2003. I'll let you fill in the details. Many of them are not appropriate for the stage. But music has that transporting capability, and it turns out so do brands. Brands have that same effect and impact on us. When you think about Red Bull sending a dude up into space at 120,000 feet and jumping out of a balloon back to Earth with a parachute, that was a feeling that Red Bull left with us. That had nothing to do with soda and had everything to do with Red Bull's about taking you to the extreme. And so what we focus on with our technology is how do we actually capture that? How do we cultivate that feeling? How do we make sure that brands are resonating with listeners? And one of the product managers on our team said, you know what's really funny? We're getting a pretty good amount of advertisers that are coming to us and wanting to advertise in Spanish. And so our original product idea was, well, why don't we play ads in Spanish while people are listening to Latin genre music? That was our original thought. Intuition probably seems right. Turns out only about 60% of the people that listen to Latin genre music speak Spanish. So 40% of people that were listening to Latin genre were hearing ads in a language that they didn't understand. Yes, you. We've fixed that. 40 people were listening to an ad that they didn't understand. And this product manager said, how can we actually leave a lasting image, memory, or emotion with a brand that I don't even understand who they are? It's pretty broken. Took that, identified, well, if you listen to Enrique Iglesias every once in a while, who doesn't love a good bailamos every now and then? It doesn't mean you speak Spanish, but if at least 50% of the music that you listen to is of Spanish language lyrics, chances are you speak Spanish. That was an insight he was able to drive, generate, test, validate, and he got it out the door. And we launched, this was in 2013, we launched a Spanish-speaking segment that is 95% accurate, which, by the way, is more accurate than anything you can target on Univision, based on that idea, which is crazy. Univision's all in Spanish. Turns out Univision has people that watch their shows that don't speak Spanish. That still doesn't make sense to me. But what your job is, what my job in this sort of situation was to say, like, that's awesome. What can we do to make sure that happens? It was to make sure that I eliminated all the obstacles for that product manager to basically take something that already existed, already was in market, that was making us about $15 million a year, and say, we're actually going to fundamentally change the way that we do this thing. We're going to throw away the $15 million that we're making, and we're going to overhaul it in a way that's going to be a smaller audience, but it's going to be more compact and accurate. And by building off of that program, that's now approaching to be a $100 million business a year, $100 million annual business for us, based off of that insight, based on scaling the product team to think about answering that question of, are we allowing brands to resonate with our listeners effectively? And so the final thing that you have to think about when it comes to shipping, when it comes to empowering your team to ship, is praise. So you've become a successful product manager, you've hired good people, you've influenced them to do the right things, and now you're sitting in your boardroom, you're sitting with your executive team, and you're really excited to talk about what my team has done. Don't be that guy that says, this is what my team has done, look how brilliant I am. Like, don't be singing Batman here. Be the person that says, it's not my team, our team did this, and here's specifically who worked on it. Praise them. Make sure that your CEO knows who worked on which product, that Eric Hoppy on our team worked on getting Spanish language targeting fixed, so that when our CEO, when our head of engineering sees him, he knows who the tech lead was, he knows who the product manager was, and that motivates the teams. That makes them feel connected to the business because they're not always going to be in the room. Remember, being a good product manager means representing whoever's not in the room. As a product leader, that means representing your team when they're not in the room. That's how you scale communication. And so the last story I'll leave you guys with is an application of our product that used advertising technology to scale to something that had absolutely nothing to do with advertising. When we've had branded stations, companies like Red Bull can create stations on Pandora, create listening experiences. And it wasn't abundantly clear to our team when Mumford Sons, one of the largest bands in the world, came to us and said, we want to live stream a concert on Pandora with you guys. And now that we've scaled to our total company is about 1,900 people, 1,800, somewhere around there. I don't know the exact number. But we're getting close to 2,000. Don't remember everybody's name anymore. And the team that was working on this had never touched advertising technology before. And what we came in with was saying, hey, by the way, so-and-so PM has been working on these sorts of curated stations before. And he's had a lot of success and has actually built up an audience of about 4 million listeners with what was known as, Ryan mentioned, our Toyota Sessions station, one of my favorites. We actually built this program before using advertising technology. It was successful. In the back of my mind, being in that room, my product manager couldn't be there, but I knew his successes. I knew the ability to praise them, and it was the opportunity to connect what one of our engineering teams was trying to build and spend 6 to 12 months rebuilding. By sharing the story, by knowing what my team had worked on, we were able to actually spare 6 to 12 months of development and actually stream this concert in March. We had over 1 million people listen to this concert. By being able to know that not everybody's going to be able to be in the room, but the team that ended up launching it was able to work with our product manager that had worked on this platform and got it live. And all these stories that I'm sharing with you, I had nothing to do with the PRD other than reading it. I got to hear a pitch of what it was going to be, what the applications were going to be. It's all about creating and sharing the stories across the company and empowering our team to execute on it. And so that's what it means to ship. Whether you're in a company of 2 product managers, whether you're in a company of 200 product managers, scaling requires all of these things. It requires thinking about what it takes to be a good and effective product manager and making sure that you put your team first and you're making sure that the insights are driving your product development and driving how you grow your team. So with that, I thank you for your time. I think we have some time for questions, and I appreciate you being here.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jack. That was awesome. So we do have time for questions. I haven't noticed anyone sending them through the app. So if you raise your hand, I'll come run over with the microphone, and we can do questions that way. So just stand tall, and I can run the microphone over. Here you go.
So your slide that had your Confluence page, almost everyone tried to photograph it, and if you're like me, you were pretty unsuccessful. Is there a way we can get a copy of that somehow?
Yeah. It's I don't know if we're emailing out. I did an article for the first round review a couple of months ago, and that screenshot is directly in there. So if you search my name in first round review, that's probably the easiest way I can think of scaling it out.
Yeah,
I can
actually,
put it up on the
all
screen
presentations will be available tonight.
There we go.
So you'll be able to see Jack's presentation tonight on the Summit website.
This one? This is like something that like now totally runs our business, and it's way awesome. And Eric from our PR team was sharing the story that this is now, this template has now been used in teams outside of product, which is also exciting to hear that it scales.
It looks very similar to the Project Central session that I just listened to.
Sorry?
The format looks very similar to the Project Central talk that Ronan gave a couple of minutes ago. Anyway, my question. When I saw the title of the session, Scaling Product Management Teams, this was not what I was expecting, but great stories. Thank you very much for sharing them.
Sure.
What are some tips or ideas that you have in terms of keeping your product managers in sync with the big product strategy? How do you do that at Pandora?
Sure. So first of all, we make it really abundantly clear who owns which specific product area and what the KPIs are for that. And so some folks are working on services that are available to all advertising products, and some people are working on specific advertising products. Like audio ads is a different product than the sponsored listening product that I showed there. But one of the things that we do is make sure that we have a what and why for every product that's there, and we set at the start of every year, we set a series of objectives and initiatives that we run by our executive team and our board. If here are the areas that we want to invest in, one of the areas this year was sponsored listening, which I shared the story on, and making sure that the product manager that is driving that product is the core driver, and we identify who's contributing to it. So folks that have services that associate with it need to make sure that they're coordinating with that product manager. Yeah, one owner, yeah.
Really great talk. What recommendations would you have for helping a team of product managers really rethink their philosophy? If they all have discordant philosophies about how to approach product management, but you really need them to work less siloed and more unified and adopt a singular philosophy of how to move forward as the company is rapidly growing.
Yeah, the one thing that I've really learned is you really have to rally around philosophy, but tactics are going to be really different. So I had a product manager who was really adamant about never writing a specific PRD because he thought that everything could be taken care of in Jira. And I had a lot of problems with that initially, like how am I actually gonna know what's going on? This was before we had the executive summary template. And it turned out, based on the service that he's running, which is determining when to insert an audio ad, it turns out that you can't actually have a massive sort of monolithic style product release. And so you have to have a sequence of JIRAs that identify what you're working on and how they sequence across. And he started using this template and started explaining why it was in the sequence that it was. So making sure that you kind of allow people to develop and build products in the way that makes most sense for them executing is key. But on the philosophy piece, if people don't buy into our idea that brands and products should be enabling, or that brands and products should be enabled to resonate with listeners, if they don't get on board with that, then I would sit down with them and ask, what is it about this that you don't agree with? And if you don't agree with it, then maybe this isn't the right place. And I think it's really, really key to make sure that everybody is marching to the beat of the same drum when it comes down to vision and mission.
Awesome. Jack, thank you so much. That's all the time we have now. If you would like to keep asking Jack questions, Jack, maybe you can go outside
Sure.
and you guys can chat with Jack there. But let's give him a round of applause. Thank you so much, Jack.